Do you ever wonder why your guitar sounds perfectly in tune when you play open chords, but somehow everything sounds way off higher up the neck? It's not your playing, it's your intonation. And the good news is you can fix it yourself in just a few minutes. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to intonate your guitar, step by step, so that every note sounds spot on, no matter where you play. You don't need expensive tools or a pro setup, just a tuner, a screwdriver, and a few minutes of your time. Proper intonation is the secret to making your guitar sound its best, whether you're playing live, recording, or just jamming at home. This one adjustment can make a massive difference. So stick around to the end because I'll also share you a few pro tricks to get it done faster and more accurately. So let's jump in. So what is intonation? Well, in simple terms, chords up the neck are sounding out of tune despite that your open strings are tuned correctly. The frets should be designed to be mathematically perfect using the CNC, which everyone uses these days to make guitars. But the physics of pushing the string down throws a curve at us. If you measure and set the saddle so that the midpoint is at the 12th fret precisely, some unexpected physics happen. When you press down on the 12th fret, even a tiny amount, you add a little extra tension to the string, which makes the 12th fret go sharp. Low frets in the neck are super close, but the higher the strings, the greater the distance that the string has to come down. So it progressively causes the string tension to increase as you play notes higher up the neck. So we set the saddle of the string further away from the nut to compensate for the sharpness. This will cancel the increased string tension until the note is right. Each string has its own perfect spot because the gauge makes a difference. If you change string gauge or tune to drop D or E flat tuning, you have altered the tension and you will most likely need to change the intonation all over. So here's the tools that you'll need. Number one, an electronic tuner. Now it's very important to use a good tuner. The faster and more accurate, the better. Strobe tuners are the absolute best for speed and accuracy. Any quick accurate tuner, though, will work. And apps for phone strobe tuners are available. They actually are very nice and they'll save you a lot of money from buying a strobe tuner. I have links in the description below. One for a Peterson strobe app, which is noted the best strobes for the iPhone. This comes under $10. And then there's a free one, which is not made by Peterson, but it acts like a strobe. And that you'll find a link that's in the Android Play Store. Some pros will bypass the good tuner for having a good ear. Basically, if you can hear and play the harmonic at the 12th fret and remember that pitch by lightly touching over the 12th fret and picking the string. This will become your reference note that you'll need to match to the fretted note. Now this confuses some people, so we recommend a good tuner. You'll also need a screwdriver, an appropriate type for your guitar bridge, whatever that may be and the size that you may need. You also need a fresh set of strings. It makes a big difference. Okay, pre-intonation setup. First thing you want to do is install new strings and allow them to stretch properly before proceeding to the desired pitch that you're going to be playing at, and stretched so that it's stable. It's best to hold the guitar in playing position. The weight of the head can affect the pitch slightly. String height needs to be dialed in. The reason is because the height, as you know, higher it is, the more tension as you press down. So this is a very critical component to intonation. You must do that first or assume that someone has already done it where you purchased your guitar or at the factory. Now the nut height should be at the right height from the factory or you're going to get bad intonation on all the lower frets. This is a very unique issue and this is not covered in this video because you really can't do anything about that unless you know how to file a nut. So you'll need to take it where you bought the guitar or any luthier. Someday we're going to cover filing down frets, and so you can make that adjustment yourself. But for now, we're just going to have to hope that your guitar came properly set up at the nut. That's really a job that should have been done at the factory or at your guitar retailer. So for now, we're just going to focus on adjusting the saddle. I'll add that you need to check out my video on setting up string action. I have a link at the end of this video, and that will help you get everything that you need to do before this actually intonation process gets done. Or like I said, you can probably assume that you've been playing with the right action and you're happy with that. Then we'll just go on with the rest of these steps. You're going to need to identify the type of bridge that you have. They all are pretty much similar, but then again, you have some that have a tremolo bar, some are a fixed bridge, and some of them are a saddle that goes up and down with 2 screws, and some are individual. But the bottom line is that the adjustment that you need to do is a screw that makes the saddle move in each one independently towards and away from the nut. So it's going to be, like a horizontal screw. And that's the one that you're going to be tweaking, and that's where you need to find the right size screwdriver. Okay, so this is going to be the first step of a 3-step process. The first thing you're going to do is make sure that the note that you play, pick any string, is perfectly in tune, dead on with the tuner. Absolutely perfect. Not a single bit of drift to the right or left. Nothing. Just perfectly in tune. Then you press on the 12th string. And then make sure that you have a light touch, a normal playing touch. The pitch of the 12th fret, you want to note if it's sharp or flat. Okay, that's step number 1. Second step is if the fretted note is sharp, then that means that the string length is too short because it's sharp. If it's flat, the string length is too long. So remember, flat moves towards the frets, and if sharp, move towards the bridge. The bridge has a sharp point, so you can think of it as sharp towards the bridge. Tune and recheck the same string several times after each adjustment. All right, let's move on to step 3, which is basically rechecking and fine-tuning. So what you need to do is just repeat the process for all the other strings, one at a time. You got to make small, precise adjustments, and you just follow through, and you'll be done in no time. Just remember to make small, precise adjustments. Okay, here's some pro tips for better accuracy. If you want perfect, check the intonation when you change gauge, when you change the brand of strings, or when you change to alternate tuning. So chords out of tune near the nut is a problem with the nut. The factory or builder of your guitar is the one responsible for this. If you do not know how to file down your nut, take it to a luthier. Another tip is to lower your pickups if your pickups are real close to the strings. Now, this is usually something that Strat pickups are noted for because they are a lower volume and people want to get them as loud as possible. So you might want to just temporarily lower them while you're intonating and then bring them back up to wherever you like them when you're done. The reason for this is the magnets too close can affect the accuracy of the tuner. Another tip is to mute all the other strings that you're not playing so that your tuner does not get confused. You want it to hear only one note at a time. Another pro tip is to press the 12th fret with your normal finger pressure. Alternate the pressure ever so slightly to make sure you have the best average, because you're going to do it several times. If it's sometimes sharp, you may be bending slightly or pressing too much and too hard. Repeat the process and keep an average. And don't forget to use a high precision, fast tuner. You'll notice that they drift slowly when they're sharp or flat if you're using a strobe tuner. You want it to stop. Another tip is to use your neck pickup if the tuner is plugged into the electric guitar, or if you're monitoring an amp with the tuner. The reason you use your neck pickup is to minimize all the overtones that a bridge pickup would provide, because they're usually more trebly, of course. And this gives you more stable readings from your tuner. So it's a really good tip. Another tip is to perform intonation in a quieter environment. You don't want any noise to affect your tuner, especially if it uses a microphone. You plug it in, this is not such a problem. Play your guitar a little bit in between tuning adjustments. This will give your strings just a little bit of time to ensure stability. So every time you turn a screw, just wait a moment. Also, every time that you turn a screw, tap the saddle to make sure that it moved properly, because it might have gotten stuck a little bit. Sometimes when you're turning counterclockwise, there's a tendency for the string to hold it down in the same position. So you want to make sure that tuner moves properly. So tap the head of the screw. Okay, now we're going to talk about another tip. The G string is usually kind of a pain to get it to work properly for you. Most people struggle with just tuning it. One little tip here is if your playing style does not include bending strings, then you would probably be a lot better off if you just went ahead and moved to using a wound string for the G string. It'll give you a lot better stability, a lot better tonal properties. And if you're not bending anyways, you're not really going to notice the difference in thickness. Bending really is the main reason to go to lighter strings anyways. So that's probably something that you might want to consider. All right, some common intonation mistakes that you really want to avoid is not knowing when to seek a professional luthier. Primary reason you might want to see them is if the nut is off and the intonation around the nut. In other words, when you play low chords, you're going to have problems with notes sounding sharp, and yet you just tune the guitar. If this is happening, like with regular chords way down near the nut, G and open C and all those, if you're detecting that there's some weird sharp notes and you just finished tuning the guitar, then this is a sign that the grooves were not cut down deep enough, because they're a little bit too high. And as you press near the first fret or second fret or third fret, the amount of increased tension is greater when the nut is not carved low enough. There should be very, very little distance between the string and the first, second, or third fret. It should be about the same between each fret, which is very slight. So that's one reason that you need to see a luthier, or you need to learn how to actually file down a nut. And like I said, we're going to probably go into that very soon in the future here. The other reason is that you're at the extreme end of the tweaking of the saddle and you're not getting intonated yet. There's some tricks that you can play with. If, let's say, it's not going flat enough, you've basically just driven the saddle all the way up against the stops, and you've screwed clockwise as much as you possibly can. So the one thing you could do is lower that string just a tiny bit, and that might get you right over the edge. Now, again, that may affect your tuning height, which makes it possible that you could buzz. But if it's just a tiny amount, you may be able to get away with it. At any rate, the best thing to do is to just get that taken care of. Another problem is not using fresh strings. Seriously, oxidized or worn strings, they're not even or consistent in diameter throughout the whole string. So the important thing is that you want strings that you wouldn't consider to be used in any sense. They're very fresh, they still play well, they still sound bright. This will get you the best results. If in doubt, just change your strings before you intonate. Then that way every time you change strings, as long as they're the same gauge, will be really close to being intonated and you won't have to redo it again. Another critical thing is the mistake that's made is don't skip setting the action first. As I mentioned earlier, skipping neck relief and action setup just simply won't work. Intonation has to be the last adjustment you make. So at the end of this video, you'll see a suggested video that I made that tells you exactly how to change the action for the style of music that you play. And that'll give you the best comfort in playing in your style. And it'll also be preparatory for the intonation, which again should be the last step in any guitar tuning process. And a final tip is just simply do not make large adjustments quickly. You need to be slow, deliberate, back and forth. You just got to make sure that you take your time to get it done right. The benefit is you're going to have beautiful chords and notes all the way up and down the neck, and it will just sound amazing. So that's the goal, and you can't rush it. You just got to take your time. It doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. 5 minutes tops to do the whole neck. But you gotta be really patient, and you gotta be really, really close to perfection. Because in reality, a guitar fretboard is a compromise. This gets into the difference between an equal-tempered scale versus a standard scale. And that's beyond the scope of this video, but it's important. So for a quick recap, basically, you got to put your finger on the 12th fret. It's got to match the open string. You tweak up or down to make them both sound the same. Very simple. And then also remember the regular intonation will improve your guitar performance. Absolutely, 100%. Take your time, be patient, as a proper intonation significantly enhances the playing experience. And also, as always, please hit the thumbs up button if you like this video, and subscribe if you want to know when I publish more tips and mods for your guitar. And also tell your friends. I'd appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any problems or your experience with intonating a guitar. Any additional tips would be welcome. And again, please make sure that you watch the string height video to set up the string action before intonating coming up next.